Okay, so here we are live with another DC Multiverse unboxing, and this is Aquaman. Not just any Aquaman, this is JLA Aquaman. And you know what that means? That means this is Aquaman from the comics of the 1990s. And by the way, it is Saturday, June 1st. It is 3:02 in the afternoon, time of this recording. So, this was Aquaman as they revamped him for his dark and gritty reboot in the 90s. so, it was written by Peter David, who was a very popular comic book writer at that time. He'd done a phenomenal run on Spectacular Spider-Man, but that wasn't the thing that really made his bones. Is probably the thing Peter David is most famous for is Incredible Hulk. He wrote an incredibly long, incredibly good run on Incredible Hulk and kind of revolutionized the character. Eventually, he popped over to DC and started doing some stuff for them. God, what else did he do at Marvel though? He did X Factor. Like pretty much wrote every important character at one point or another over at Marvel. Very much a mainstay over there. And then when he got to DC, he got his hands on Aquaman, who was a character that was basically had been in flux since kind of like the 1970s. They really hadn't found anything to do with him since then. But he kind of off and on would have a solo title here and there, maybe a mini series, maybe a special. I know that the Neil Posner, Craig Hamilton miniseries of Aquaman is fairly well regarded and remembered. That was the one where he had that blue camo ocean suit, if you remember. Then there were a couple of specials after Crisis, just kind of to try to keep Aquaman in the public eye. There was a brief period where he was the leader of Justice League Detroit, which we've talked about previously, but it didn't last too long. I think because the idea was that they didn't want to have any characters in the book that were in continuing comic books. They were supposed to just be full-time Justice League members. And so when they did the Aquaman miniseries, I think that was when they kind of had to take him out. And it was one of those things where that Anakin Skywalker moment of, hold on, this whole operation was your idea. Dude broke up the Justice League and says, well, we're putting back together the Justice League with people only that want to be in the Justice League full-time. No people who, are solo heroes on their own. And then almost immediately was like, well, I'm going to go be a solo hero on my own. Bye. No Aquaman of art, artwork of Aquaman on the back. We got the big picture of Plastic Man that we've seen before. We just got the cross-cell image of Aquaman along with the other images of Batman from that same cover of Justice JLA #1 and Superman from that same cover of JLA #1, even though the Superman figure doesn't look anything like that. And then the first appearance, John Stewart, who really doesn't belong in this assortment because he wasn't the Green Lantern in that issue. And you can tell because he's the only character that, doesn't have artwork from that cover. So, let's go ahead and open them up. And since this one comes with the regular arms for Plastic Man, we can go ahead and put those on. So let's take this tray out first, and then we'll take out the backing. And the card and the stand are on two separate bubbles, unfortunately. But it looks like I'm going to be able to get the card out with no trouble, so that's good. And the figure stand, which, of course, is the standard matte black figure stand with a DC logo embossed on there in glossy black. Just what we're used to. Every figure should come with a figure stand. I will die on that hill. All right, so I'm going to put that back in there. And then we'll move on to the trading card. Read the back of the trading card real quick. So here is a detail from the cover of JLA #1. Nice portrait of Aquaman by Howard Porter. He was just getting started at this time. And, his artwork was good in this issue. And I kind of feel like overall his artwork throughout JLA was kind of like almost like I mean this in the most complimentary way. It was almost like a 90s version of the artwork that you saw in the Silver Age Justice League comics, which the artist, I'm drawing a blank on his name. It's on the tip of my tongue. Mike Sikowski. Yeah. So it was almost like a 90s version of Mike Sikowski. And it's one of those things where it's like, looking at the members of the Justice League, I don't think there's any member of the Justice League that I would point at and say, Howard Porter drew this character better than anybody else. There are artists who could draw, say, Batman or Flash or Wonder Woman or Superman better than Howard Porter. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an artist that could draw all of those characters as well as Howard Porter could. He was just a good overall artist for all those characters, I think. Really the only way you could do that, I think, is to get something like Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, but he ain't drawing interiors of comics anymore. He's got badder fish to fry. All right, so there's what the back looks like. And let me go ahead and read the back. Aquaman, JLA, data file, real name Arthur Curry. The son of a lighthouse keeper and Atlantean queen, Arthur Curry is the bridge between the surface world and the tumultuous realm of the sea. Monarch of the underseas realm of Atlantis and king of the seven seas, Aquaman is one of the most powerful DC superheroes, commanding the kingdom that covers 3/4 of the Earth's surface, including all the creatures contained therein. Arthur Curry came from humble beginnings, as most of his life was spent exiled from his home, unaware of his noble origins. When he finally took his throne as an adult, he became the most legendary king in Atlantean history. I've probably mentioned this before whenever we've been over Aquaman bios, but one scene I always really like with Aquaman is in Kingdom Come, where Wonder Woman and Superman come to him asking if they can set up their gulag under the ocean, and Arthur turns him down. He just flatly refuses, and he's like, and they're like, if you could only know what we're facing up there, and he's basically like, up there? Do you know what I'm facing down here? You've got hundreds of champions for a few pitiful land masses. I protect 3/4 of the Earth's surface, and there is only me. Pretty badass. I like that. All right, so a friend of mine on Facebook had referred to this as being the worst look for Aquaman ever. And, it's possible, I suppose. Aquaman's had a lot of looks, and I can't really think of any that I've disliked offhand. But that doesn't mean I think this is a bad look. I think it's a pretty good look, especially, if you got the right story behind it. And like I said, Peter David, he's a good writer, and he did a really good job writing Aquaman during this run. But I have to say, as far as Aquaman losing his hand and replacing it with this hook-like prosthesis, most people are going to look at this and see a hook. Peter David will tell you it's a harpoon, because it's supposed to be like a metaphor for the relationship between humanity and the ocean. So it's kind of like he took humanity's weapon against the ocean and put it on his arm. But it's kind of a hook-like harpoon, I'm just saying. So now, if you look at the earliest appearances where Aquaman lost his hand, there it definitely looks like a harpoon. But the way that a lot of artists draw it winds up looking more like a hook. So let's go ahead and we'll put the basic arms into Plastic Man so we can see what he looks like with those. And there we go. And since I've got this like the regular arms on him, I want to put the regular head on him, but man, I've got so much stuff piled up here, and I've been through so much crap recently with I keep comparing these figures one to another, and then I've just got like a big pile of action figures right here. So I'm kind of digging through here, trying to see if I can find what I did with that extra Plastic Man head. So I would kind of like to have that one on there. The normal head with the normal arms. It makes sense. Now, my plan is eventually I want to get an extra Green Lantern because I wanted to use it to make a Hal Jordan. Just do a head swap, maybe repaint the neck if I have to. I think I have to. I don't think it's a separate piece. Well, I don't see it around right now, but I'll probably run across it later when I'm looking for something else entirely. That's what tends to happen sometimes, right? You're looking for something specific and you're not finding it. And then when you're looking for something else, you find the first thing you were looking for. And it's like, oh, great, where have you been this whole time? It's like, there are lots of things in the world. And if you're looking for one thing, you're not likely to find it. Because of all the things in the world, you're looking for that one thing. So the odds are against you. But if you just look for anything, you're bound to find something, right? Anyway, we'll just go ahead and... So yeah, that's what he looks like with normal arms. And of course, they rotate all the way around the bicep, lift up about that far. Got a bicep swivel, rotates all the way around. Got double joint at the elbow. That's about the range of motion at the elbow. Got the cool Mcfarlane ball joints at the wrist. Those move around any which way, yada, yada, yada. There we go. I will probably try to do a video talking all about Plastic Man in the near future, but I definitely want to have his other head to do that. So for now, Plastic Man is going to have to wait. So we will set him aside and set his arms aside. Try to keep all of that together because we don't want to lose any more of our Plastic Man parts. Man, that's going to bug me that I can't find that. All right. Maybe it's in this pile of stuff over on my couch somewhere. Does not look like it. I'm sure we'll find it eventually. It'll be okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get Aquaman out of the package. So we're going to cut through all of the little rubber tabs. He had one around his elbow, one around his prosthesis. We'll just call it a prosthesis so that way I'm not triggering Peter David if he watches this. I don't want Peter David to get mad at me because I'm calling it a hook. Didn't I already cut this one? I thought I already cut this one. Peter David being a writer that I have a lot of fondness and respect for. I've met him a few times. I used to go to Dragon Con a lot before the dark times, before COVID. And I know Peter David used to go there a lot. I don't know if he still does because I haven't been there in a few years, but I know that in between last time I would have gone to Dragon Con and the present, at some point Peter David wound up having a stroke. And I think he's been having some health problems since then as a result of it. So I don't know if he gets out to conventions anymore, unfortunately. But he was a mainstay at Dragon Con for years, him and George Perez, who unfortunately has passed away. So either way, it's the end of an era. Kind of part of the appeal of seeing those two there was seeing them together because they were like really good friends in real life. But, you know, I guess life moves on. I'm sorry, I don't want to get all depressing in the middle of an action figure review. So I kind of accidentally nicked his belt a little bit. So I was afraid that like I'd kind of cut his belt actually. But I guess the X-Acto knife just kind of rubbed up against it just enough. It doesn't seem like it actually cut through it or anything like that. So thank God for that. All right, so let's somewhere around here, I could have sworn that I had one of the other Aquaman figures from this line because I was comparing him to the movie version. So I'm kind of digging around, see if I can find that. I was thinking it was over here on this table. Is that him? No, that's Green Lantern. That's Kyle Rayner. Okay, I think I found him. He's in an awkward spot. I gotta pull him out from under some stuff. All right. So I definitely wanted to compare these two for a few reasons. And one is that it might not seem obvious at first because of the differences in the paint job, but I was suspicious of this, and I think my suspicions have been confirmed. This is a reuse of the head from the Rebirth Aquaman figure they did a while back. I don't know if it's technically Rebirth or like Dark Knight's Metal or something like that, but it's a post Rebirth Aquaman. So this is the same head sculpt. And like I said, it's kind of a little difficult to tell just because they're painted so differently. And even at first, it doesn't look like they're painted that differently. It's just the skin color is a little different. But this one, they painted on the skin, and this one, it's molded in the skin plastic. His lips are a little darker. It's a darker tone to the skin. The eyes are painted a little better on the newer figure. But it is the same sculpt, it looks like to me. Well, actually, on closer examination, I don't think this is the same sculpt. I think the hair is the same sculpt, but the beard is slightly different on one from the other. It looks like it's based on the same sculpt of the head, but it's slightly adjusted. Let's see, so I'm really looking at it now. This one, the older one, has his eyebrow kind of cocked a little bit more, like almost like they thought The Rock was going to be playing Aquaman instead of Jason Momoa. And this one, the beard is a little more neatly groomed and trimmed. This one, the beard's a little more sort of scraggly, like it's been a little too long since he's been to the barber shop. I can relate, but the heads are very similar. They're similar enough that at first I thought they might be the same head, but they're actually not. They're just very similar heads. I think they did reuse the hair, but the actual head itself is a different head. And then from the waist down, it looks like these two figures are the same sculpt, which makes sense because the pants are similar enough, the belt is similar enough. Why go through the bother of painting an all or sculpting an all new belt and all new pants for Aquaman? You're just going to have the pants that pretty much look like the ones that he had in the previous figure. Makes sense to me. All right, so let's go ahead and go over his articulation. And Aquaman can look up about that far. It's the hair that's hindering it. I can actually move it up a little bit further, but the hair is just going to press it back down. He can look down about that far. So good range of motion looking down. Kind of tilts his head quizzically from side to side. One way works better than the other, I think. The head does rotate all the way around despite the hair. You can move the head any which way you want to. Pretty good articulation on the head. Arms rotate all the way around at the shoulder and move up about that far. So that's pretty good. He does have a bicep swivel. Bicep rotates all the way around. Arm bends about that far. Good range of motion on both of these arms. Now, here's where we're going to get into some interesting parts with subtly articulation. Because, of course, he's got a standard right hand. So the right hand's on the same type of ball joint like we're used to seeing on these Mcfarlane figures. So we can get all kinds of good range of motion out of that. It is a solid fist. He can't hold any accessories. Even if you wanted to give him a trident, you can't. He can't hold it. So but he's got the harpoon hand. He's got the prosthesis. So he's already got a weapon. So that's fine. And of course, the prosthesis does have a single point of articulation, so you can rotate that all the way around. So that is nice. So you can get that really into whatever position you want to. Sometimes, depending on how they had his arm posed in the comic book, the hook, the barbed part would be up or down or whatever. And also in the comic book, he could fire off the harpoon like a grappling hook. So that gave him like a little bit of reach with that. So that was nice. Now, as much as I did like this run of the comic book and felt like it was very well written, good artwork, I gotta say that the animated show, and this will be another reason I figure this will be a popular figure, is because it is a similar design to what we had on the Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited. Is the when they did the origin story on Justice League of how he lost his hand, I think they did a better job with that. And they were able to do it because of something that they couldn't do in the comic book, because in the comic book, Aquaman's infant son had been killed by Black Manta, but he was still alive in the cartoon continuity. So basically, Orm, and spoiler warning, if you haven't seen this episode, you should go and watch it if you haven't seen it. So go ahead and pause the video, go to Netflix or HBO Max, it's on both of them, and watch the first Justice League episode, the first two-parter that they did with Aquaman. Come back and finish up. I'll give you a second to get that done. Pause the video and go watch that. Okay, are we back? Did we watch that? Wasn't that a great episode? Man. So now for everybody who's seen this by now, and if you haven't seen it, it's your own fault. I did warn you. So Orm would have been next in line for the throne of Atlantis if Aquaman hadn't had a son. So he basically has Aquaman chained to a big rock that's slowly sliding into a volcanic pit, and pins the baby Arthur Jr. by his swaddling to the side of said volcanic rock underneath Aquaman. So Aquaman is struggling to free himself from these manacles that he's chained on with, and even despite his great strength, he's not able to do it. So finally, in one desperate act to save his son, he winds up taking the belt buckle off of his belt, and he's kind of hacking away at the rock and can't even get the rock to give way around the chains. So finally, he does the only thing that a father could do to save his son in a situation like that. And we see the blade come down like one more time, and then it cuts back to where the Justice League is. And when he comes back, he's got the baby blanket wrapped around his arm. It's a red baby blanket because they want to avoid having to show any blood because of broadcast standards and practices. But it's pretty obvious what happened is that Aquaman cut off his own hand to save his infant son. And it's like, to me, like all due respect to Peter David and everybody who worked on the comic book was good, but the animated found a better way to do it. And it's like, you can't beat a father's love for his son as far as a mother's love for her son, or father's love for his daughter. A parent's love for their child is what I'm saying. You can't beat that as far as a motivation. And that was just such a beautiful story to me. So that was what really sold me, I think, on the whole hook-handed Aquaman thing. As much as I did like those comics, like, I just kind of felt like maybe it was a little edgy for edgy's sake to give him the hook hand, but they were still good comics, so I didn't really care. But the animated series was what really made it work for me. So that's why I'm happy to have this figure. I mean, I'd be happy to have him for the comic book version anyway, but I really like that Justice League animated version. Anyway, let's get back to the articulation. So he's got that good Mcfarlane torso articulation, so we can move him any which way around at the torso, get lots of good dramatic poses out of him. If we were going to, put him on a flight stand, you could get like some good swimming poses out of him. Outrageous! Yeah, I'll admit it. Brave and the Bold version of Aquaman. That's my absolute favorite. I do love that show. But yeah, you can get some really good dramatic aquatic poses out of him. Since he can look down, he can kind of be like floating as he looks down at something. Pretty cool. Legs can kick up about that far. Excellent range of motion on those legs. I mean, that's the kind of range of motion that Quick Kick should want. That G.I. Joe Classified line. Wow. He can definitely do the splits, no problem. All right, so there we go. And then we got the double jointed legs. And the double jointed knees are a little slightly articulated, of course, by the iconic Aquaman fins. But what are you going to do? Not have Aquaman with fins? Come on, you got to have the fins. And he does have the good Mcfarlane ankle articulation. Ankle points up that far, points down about that far. And it is on a rocker ankle that can move any which way around that way. The articulation on the lower part of this figure is phenomenal. This is some of the best articulation I've ever seen on a Mcfarlane figure, and I don't know if I really appreciated it on this guy. Can he kick up about that far? Yeah, maybe. I think they actually improved upon it on this one. I think maybe it's just because the pelvis might be a softer type of plastic, but I think it works pretty well. So, like I said, they did just kind of reuse the standard Aquaman pants. He does have a more detailed belt like the modern version would, but the scales that are on the side of the pants aren't sculpted in. You can see they're just kind of tampographed on, and even then they didn't tampograph all of them, just kind of like a little patchiness. But to me, that's kind of comic booky anyway, because they usually would just kind of draw a few of the scales and then call it a day, and let your eye subliminally fill in the rest. So the colors are really good on this guy. He's got like a nice, rich, tanned skin tone. Looks very, very warm. This is to me like this is an ideal Caucasian skin color. I would probably prefer for most of my Caucasian characters to be colored like this. Sometimes they can be a little pasty. Like, I do really like this Superman figure, but he does look a little pale, especially when you see him next to Aquaman here. I would prefer for them to have like a little bit more of a tan is all I'm saying. And Golden Age, other Golden Age Superman, he kind of matches up with that one enough, I think. But they are supposed to be the same guy, like literally the same guy. If I got any more DC Multiverse around here, Hold him next to Kyle Rayner, since they both would be on the same team together. So we can see that. If Flash wasn't over on the other side of the room, I'd hold him next to Flash too. So so let's see. And then we got Martian Manhunter. So I got Kyle Rayner, Wally West, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman. We got the Electric Blue Superman. We got Mullet Superman. So we got the standard sort of classic Superman. So that kind of covers our bases as far as like the three different versions of Superman that we would see throughout this run. We would start with the Mullet Superman, then the Electric Blue Superman, then back to the classic Superman when he finally goes back to normal. So, but yeah, I got Martian Manhunter, Superman, the All Black Batman, and Wonder Woman. Not exactly the 90s Wonder Woman, but I think she's close enough. So that gives us the full Big Seven of Grant Morrison's JLA. So that's pretty cool. I will have to get a picture of all of them together sometime in the near future. So look for me to pop that up as like a community post or something. But I'm really happy with this Aquaman figure. I think I'm happier with him than I even suspected I would have been. I do know that there's another Aquaman figure out that's supposed to be the classic Aquaman, which is basically just this one with a new head. But I don't know if I'm going to wind up picking that one up at this point. Because honestly, I wasn't that impressed with the new head. I thought he didn't look like Aquaman to me. He looked like some actor that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And I finally realized who it was. It was Josh Lucas. Remember the guy that played Talbot in the Ang Lee Hulk movie, and he was in American Psycho as one of the yuppie guys in that, and he was in Secondhand Lions. Good actor, don't get me wrong, but not exactly who I would want to see play Aquaman. You know, maybe Green Arrow. He might have been a good Green Arrow. I could see that. But yeah, I was thinking since this guy is kind of still pretty affordable to get on Amazon, and it's basically the same figure as that one, I could probably just get that one and make him an all new head. And then I could have a classic Aquaman that way that was more to my liking. So, but Hook Hand Aquaman, they definitely did a great job with. I'm very happy with this figure. I like him even more than I would have thought that I would have liked him. So, definitely gets a thumbs up for me. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe, all the film YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Aquaman. Not just this figure, but the character in general. What's your favorite version of Aquaman? Are you like me? Do you like the Brave and the Bold version the best? Maybe you're more of a fan of like the classic comics. Maybe you like Ramona Fradden, who passed away recently. Fantastic Aquaman artist. Or Nick Cardy, another one of the greats. My personal favorite Aquaman artist of the comic books was Jim Aparo, most famous for Batman, and also did a phenomenal run on the Spectre. Like I mentioned that in my Spectre review, some of my favorite comics of all time. But his run on Aquaman was really good too. And then, like I said, Aquaman was kind of lost in the wilderness for a while until Peter David came along, and I think that also was one of the best runs of Aquaman comics ever. But let me know in the comments what you think about Aquaman, the figure, and the character in general. I will be back on Monday, probably, with another figure to open. I haven't decided what I'm going to open yet, because it's possible I might get that Battle Armored He-Man today. And if I get that, I'm probably going to open that on Monday. But if not, I mean, I still got like 2 more of the older Masterverse figures that I haven't opened yet. You'll see which ones those are when I get around to opening them. But some from previous waves. And I do still have a lot more DC Multiverse to open. I've still got those vintage Batman the Animated Series items to open. Yes, I'm going to be opening some toys from the 90s. It's going to be a lot of fun. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this episode. We will talk to you next time. Bye.